Well, here's the thing. I think it's important to keep in mind that not all black men think alike, and I think we also have to draw the line between what is entertainment and what is actually real life. Now, I think one of the interesting things when we deal with the whole influence of gangster rap and that sort of culture, anti-feminist culture that we see in gangster rap and in some popular R&B music, I think we also have to deal with the fact that many of the same women who would say they don't like being referred to as certain ways and only being viewed as a piece of flesh or a sexually objectified person, they tend to dance to that music. They tend to sing that music. They tend to follow those same rappers, but then say, don't treat me like this. So I will dance to the thong song, but don't be looking for my thong. You know, I will dance to music that calls women bees, but don't you call me a bee. And so I think a lot of this has to go to the collective sisterhood in terms of being able to take a stand. I mean, look at all the women who are willing to undress themselves to get in these videos, and most of them do it for free. They don't even get paid for it. So I think there needs to be some internal regulation. I mean, the same thing goes towards black people as a whole. For example, violence. Trayvon Martin happened, black folks, you know, they got upset, and they should have. When Rodney King happened, they got upset. And when these killings happen, they get upset. But when black people kill other black people, you know, there is no outcry, almost as if it's acceptable to kill another black person. So I think we have to look at the hypocrisy within our own behavior, both black men as it relates to black women as it relates to black men, and then black people as it relates to the European power structure and not wanting them to do certain things to us, but it's okay if we do it to ourselves. So I think we have to do some internal house cleaning. But the other thing, too, two other additional dynamics when we talk about the male-female relationship matrix. Number one, the black man is the only man who has to compete with his woman. In other words, I get a lot of emails from black men who feel like they're competing with their woman when it comes to success and education as much as they would compete with another man. It's almost as if a lot of men feel that the black woman is in competition with him, even if she loves him, even if they're married together. He got his master's, let me get our doctorate. We both have our doctorate, let me go and get an advanced degree. If we both make an equal amount of money, let me try to make more than him. It's almost as if the black woman feels like she always has to have one up on the black man. Not every black woman, but of course, this is a growing problem because I'm seeing the emails. And the other issue is that the black man is the only man in this country whose woman is allowed to basically ignore him and overstep him for anything she wants. She can go to the white supremacist power structure to get it. If she wants food, if she wants clothing, if she wants shelter, if she wants his child support, she doesn't even have to ask him for money. She'll just go to the white man and say, look, I want him to pay me money. So she saves the humbling effect that it would have in having to come to him and say, look, I need some help here. Okay, she can go right past him and go straight to the white man, and then he becomes her enforcer. And one of the things that's scaring a lot of black men, and I'm telling you, when I go into these colleges and speak to the young brothers, 17 to 25, I'm hearing record numbers of black men say, I'm not getting married. They don't have children, they don't want children, and they don't want to get married. And I say, why not? They say, I've seen too many times.
Dr. Johnson, hold that thought. We got to take an NBC News break. We'll be right back. The Maya Kai Show. Welcome back to the Maya Kai Show. You're tuned into the Talk of Chicago, of course, 1690 AM WVON. Streaming worldwide at WVON.com and via the iHeartRadio.com app. This show will go until 9 p.m. and there's so much to talk about and so little time to get it all in, but we're going to try to get as much in as we can. Sharing this conversation of post-traumatic slave syndrome or disease, as Dr. Umar Johnson discusses, is it the root of violence and chaos in many urban communities, or some people feel it's simply just more rhetoric created to displace responsibility? And clearly when you look at a lot of the systematic things that happen that were emotional, psychological, socio-economic, you can see the path of how the community has developed the way that it has. I mean, you have people, obviously, who've managed to have success regardless to the circumstances, and that's always going to be what some people are going to question. One thing I remember when I read The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson, this always stuck with me. When you control the man's mind, you don't have to worry about his actions. You don't have to tell him not to stand here or go yonder. He will automatically find his proper place and stay in it. You don't need to send him to the back door. He'll go without being told. In fact, if there is no back door, he'll cut one for his own special benefit. I think that says it in a nutshell, that there are so many things that people have grown accustomed to doing. Whether it's right or wrong, they don't ask. And one thing that you mentioned in our conversation, Dr. Johnson, that I think is key is that often it seems like a lot of black people don't want to stand up and have the conversation because they feel if they bring it up, people kind of roll their eyes and say, I don't want to hear this. But unless you're willing to address the issues, you can't solve the problem. And that's probably the biggest deficit that's being faced as you see an increase in crime. Last week I did a show on private, prison management companies, how it's a cash cow, how they're making money off of mass incarceration. If you don't address the issue, it just gets worse. And whether people want to accept this or not, slavery may no longer be legal. You cannot be bought and sold. You're no longer chattel. But the way that systematic ways of manifesting slavery has just changed for people. Welfare, you mentioned it quite well. Whereas I don't have to go to you for anything because I can just go to the federal government and say, I need to put a roof over my head, I need to feed my children, et cetera, et cetera. It's taking one system and just replacing it with another. And that's what people need to acknowledge that they don't, because it seems like help. You know something that's interesting, Dr. Johnson, and tell me your thoughts on this too. And then callers will get back to you. A lot of people are really gun-ho about, the Democratic Party, and they sing its praises and think that it's so designed to work for them. But if you did your research, you'd realize that coming out of slavery in 1865, it was actually the Republicans, not because they loved the idea of freeing African Americans. That wasn't it. It was Republicans that facilitated a lot of the things that you saw through the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment because they realized since slaves were no longer property, the 3/5 compromise didn't apply, which means in regard to the House of Representatives, the Democrats, who, by the way, were Southern slave owners, could gain more power. So it was their vested interest to do something to make sure that didn't happen. So hence, they advocated more for freed black people. But yet there's this huge love affair, I find, with a lot of black people with the Democratic Party. And I kind of think, in a way, it's a double-edged sword. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, black people are almost a non-issue with either party. And that's because the Democrats, as you stated, automatically know that they get the black vote. Whether they care about black people or not, the black bourgeoisie has basically forced black day with the Democrats and vote for them regardless of the policy. So if I know I'm guaranteed to get your vote just because you don't like the other guy, you're not even discussed when we have our caucus. When I'm deciding on my presidential platform or governor's platform or mayor's platform, I'm not even going to consider you because I know you're going to vote for me. I remember when President Obama, when he ran for his first term, he was criticized on not visiting enough African-American neighborhoods. They compared him to President Clinton. They said, well, compared to the previous Democrat, your record of visiting black neighborhoods is one of the lowest for all Democratic presidential candidates. And Obama basically said, I don't have to go to black communities because I already have their vote. So he was able to take them for granted. And those was his words. I don't have to vote for them because, I don't have to go to their neighborhoods because I already have their vote. I'm concentrating on places where I don't have to vote. So he basically took it for granted. And we see that in his behavior in office. And the same thing goes for Republicans. They know black folks aren't going to vote for them. They're considered the white racist party. But the Democrats are equally as racist as the Republicans, which is why I argue that black people don't need to be loyal to any party because neither party is loyal to you. We need to be loyal to ourselves and use our voting power as leverage for both candidates who are running for office, and then based on our conversation, communication, and based on what they're willing to give us for our votes, that's how we should decide. We already know right now, before the election of 2016, that we're voting Democrat, regardless of who it is and what they're going to say. That right there equals political disaster.
I agree. Just want to run that by you because I think a lot of black people don't even realize that coming out of slavery, that slave owners were Democratic and the people who, to agree, advocated for you only because it was to their best interest were Republican. Don't know the history, and yet there's this huge, absolute. I trust the Democratic Party is going to do what's in our best interest, and I would say just look at the track record. Do you feel enough has been accomplished given the amount of time? And I say no, but that's just me. Let's go ahead and go back to the phone lines. Let's take a call from Fahid, who's calling from the west side. Fahid, you're on the Maya Kai Show. You have questions, comments?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Listen, we have a crisis, like Brother Umar has said, specifically with the black man, and it's not being addressed. And I salute Brother Umar for being one of the few academics who is gender specific about addressing the issues of black men, because we've lived through, of course, the feminism, women's liberation movement. And quite frankly, now it's time for the men's movement. And we are certainly justified when we consider the LGBT phenomena that we are witnessing right before our eyes, typified, of course, by the heard around the world. We should be alarmed as well as annoyed when we consider that happened in the same week that Magic Johnson was put in his place, and quite frankly and quite prophetically, justifiably so, because the black athlete has been the last bastion of black manhood and black masculinity that black men have ever had. I mean, and since we've been having this discussion since the Donald Sterling and the Magic Johnson controversy, I haven't heard it put in proper historical context. And like I've said before, we need some more Muhammad Ali's, because Muhammad Ali, we saw that black man, that black athlete, help black men regain his respect. Howard Lee Lyon, the Scary Scarecrow, and the Rusty Tin Man, those metaphors are accurate descriptions of the weakness that black men are exhibiting. 20 years after the Million Man March, he's still scratching his head, wobbling and falling down like the Scarecrow and the Wizard of Oz. We have a crisis, and it took Donald Sterling. It took Pharaoh himself to say, I've let you people go. Now go and lead your damn people, Magic Johnson. You all had a Million Man March. And so, Brother Umar, you the man, brother. We need a new Moses, man, because, we cannot continue to pathologize. I'm kind of getting tired of it. I really am. And like I said, it took the comments of Donald Sterling. And not only that, I mean, if you look in the media, it's been open season on black men. Go all the way back to George Zimmerman and Cliven Bundy and this man who just called Obama the on Meet the Press. They said President Obama wasn't an alpha male. So, I mean, who else is connecting the dots? Is this just showing up on my radio and TV? Okay?
All right, Fahid, thank you for the call. Dr. Umar, would you like to chime in?
Yes, I think that's true. A lot of what my brother was stating, one of the things I often do is I work a lot with the mothers' organizations, Women Against Violence, a lot of mothers whose sons were murdered. And I think one of the things that comes to mind when I hear my brother's comments is you rarely see black women's organizations that are either developed or that have a significant interest in improving the condition of black men. Like a lot of our women's organizations that do focus on male issues are limited to the boys in jail or the boys who are dead or the boys without their fathers, but mostly it's the ones who are deceased. But you rarely see black women's organizations take up any of the issues that are affecting black men: mass unemployment, mass incarceration, the mass police brutality. You rarely see that from black women. It's almost as if she's allergic to issues that affect the male. And I think that for some of our women, they have really bought into the dominant message that white America wants all Americans to have about the black man, and that is that he isn't nothing. And so I think a lot of black men feel that tension from the black woman, and I think it to foster the mistrust. And then the fact that a lot of black women tend to join forces with the white power structure against the black man, a way of child support and child custody and divorce court and all that type of thing, really intensified the mistrust that black men and black women have for each other.
Okay, I'm going to roll with you on this to a degree. You're right. There definitely is a disconnect in the relationship between black men and black women.